If I'm going to be honest, before making this video, I probably haven't had lo mein since I was a kid. I do remember my mom ordering it often when I was in Hong Kong, but it wasn't something that I really craved as an adult. What a mistake that was, waiting this long to try it again, because as it turns out, it is just as good as I remembered it. As with any stir-fried dish, the technique itself is pretty simple. All the work is in the prep. Chop your vegetables into uniform shapes. Here I chose carrots, red bell peppers, and oyster mushrooms. Fun fact, did you know that it is almost impossible to overcook a mushroom? Unlike the proteins in meat and the cell structure of plants, mushrooms are just more resistant to heat in a molecular level. It doesn't mean they take longer to cook, it just means that they don't overcook as easily. So if you are the type of person who oftentimes burns the food that they cook, consider the mushroom. They take a lot longer to burn. As far as the other vegetables, it's all a matter of preference. Scallions, even though they are not part of the stir fry itself, will be topping the dish, so we will prep that here as well. Slice off the limp tops and use them as flavoring for your noodle water. We don't really have much use for them, just like limp tops in general. Lo mein as a dish is something that I normally associate with vegetarian food. Because it's oftentimes consumed during the new year, it's commonly made without any meat. There are quite a few Chinese people who start the Chinese New Year as vegetarians because they believe it's good to start with a clean diet. The stuff in this can is called mock duck, and it's actually made of gluten, processed in a way that actually mimics the feel of stir-fried duck, and it's actually pretty good. And this is actually a newer product. It's called Omni Pork, and it's supposed to kind of mimic the taste and feel of pork, but I prefer the mock duck if I'm going to be honest. Once your vegetables are all chopped, it's time to par-cook your noodles. Pay attention to what is written on the packaging of your noodles because some of them will say pre-cooked and some of them will be raw. The difference being that some might have to be par-boiled and some will be ready to stir-fry straight out of the bag. The reason why some Chinese people eat vegetarian food in the first day of the new year actually goes back to Buddhism, with the belief that on the 1st and 15th day of every lunar month, you have to eat vegetarian food to appease the Buddha and build up good karma. As to why on the 1st and 15th day, if I know, I eat meat. Do not panic, nothing happened to my hair, this is just an older video. I thought it would be fun for today's side quest to share with you some of the older stuff that I used to do. And in this case, I made a curry using Mexican chiles and seafood as part of a collaboration with Funimation, who challenged me to make a dish based on Tanjiro from Demon Slayer. The idea being that I would make a spicy chili-based seafood curry as representative of his water and fire breathing techniques. If you haven't seen the anime or don't watch anime in general, there is a guy, he has water and fire powers, that's about it. The process itself was pretty simple. I took some ancho chilies, some chipotles, and some guajillo chilies, and I started simmering them in some water. For the masala, we have curry leaves, cinnamon, coriander, nutmeg, fennel, cumin, black pepper, brown mustard seeds, and a whole dried turmeric root. Give your spices a decent pounding, not one that is overcompensating in any way, but one that is respectful, but memorable at the same time. Now, because of these spices and the golden color of the turmeric root, you're going to find that this color is a little brownish gold. Because I want the sauce itself to be a much deeper kind of red, I went to some sources of natural food coloring. Red yeast rice is the Chinese answer to koji. The mold on the rice is edible and has a deep umami flavor, and almost has a deep blood red when it comes in contact with water. I also added some sweet paprika because I wasn't taking any risks. I like using onions as a base of my curry because I enjoy the thick texture that you get from cooking them down and then blending them. This is in contrast to say like a Japanese curry where you use butter, curry powder, and flour to make a roux as your curry base. Totally a matter of preference, and I very much enjoy both of them. I do believe that onion-based curries are a little more nuanced than roux-based curries. You can tell that this is one of my earlier videos not just by my hair but by my lack of practical lighting in the background. Actually, looking back at this now, it's pretty obvious that I did not know how to light a shot. I barely know how to use lights now. Here's me thinking I'm doing something. Behold the magic of cinema. That, by the way, is minced garlic and grated ginger, because in my opinion, curry is not a curry without Gigi paste. Here I'm sweating out some onions in some coconut oil and then transferring them into a bigger pan because I miscalculated the size of pan I needed, which even after 10 years of cooking, if not more, is something that I still do all the time. Now, if you're making a masala and you're using raw spices, and by raw I mean like untoasted and unfried, it is important to fry your spices before using them in the curry. Here you see me make a well inside the onions with some little oil, and then I added the spices on top to fry them. This, in a way, activates the spices, I guess, and it takes off that raw edge that you normally get if you don't do this with your masala or spice mix. Once that is done, I added the coconut cream, making sure to get in the delicious chunky bits, and then stirring in some San Marzano tomatoes as well as the simmering chiles. The flavor profile of this curry was so interesting and so delicious. It had like the spirit of a curry, but it also had the aroma of a mole, and it was just, and those being my two favorite things to eat combined just made it, I just really love this dish. Blend your curry till smooth and then put it all in a stock pot where we proceed to cook it in with our seafood, including a couple of simmering spices to keep it company, some star anise and some bay leaf. Now again, because of the theme of the dish, I wanted to combine some fiery elements of chilies and curry in with the water elements of seafood. So in went some shrimp and scallops and then simmered just long enough for them to be cooked all the way through. Remember, the sauce itself is already cooked, so at this point, we just need the seafood to be cooked as we like them. Not only did I do contrasting flavors and themes, I also did contrasting colors. So in this rice is some butterfly pea blossom and some rosemary oil. Finally, we hammer home the theme with the plating. If you know the anime, you know there's a lot of dramatic circular moments that are extremely colorful, and there's like an interchange between circular fire and circular water motions. Red leafy amaranth sprouts kind of look like purple butterflies to me, and that was kind of my hat tip to Shinobu Kocho. If you know, you know. Bringing it back to the noodles, they have been cooked and now we need to just change our station from boiling to stir frying. And in a wok, as you can see, it is super easy. This induction wok setup is better than any gas-based home system I've ever seen in the United States. Unsponsored, it is made by a company called New Wave. It is fantastic and it is constantly sold out because I'm pretty sure they are the only induction wok in the game that is available in the US. Now for the sauces, we will be using vegetarian oyster sauce, dark soy sauce, and this tomato soy sauce that I had made before. And the stir frying process is super quick, adding the ginger and the garlic as well as the fake pork. We're just gonna stir fry that a little bit till it's cooked all the way through, even though because it's not meat, I don't have to worry about that. Honestly, if your wok is high powered enough, the whole process shouldn't take any more than like 8 minutes, 10 minutes max. I don't even know if it will take that long. When stir frying with meat, it's important to par cook the meat first and then take it out and then add your vegetables along with your sauce afterwards. So they can all cook uniformly and be done at the same time, but because this is a vegetarian dish and the pork isn't really pork, I could have just put them all in at once, I guess. Covering the noodles in the sauce and the vegetables a little bit so that the noodles are able to absorb some of the sauce before adding the cornstarch slurry to thicken everything up and to make it nice and slippery in the texture that you expect it to be. One thing you need to be mindful of is making sure that you don't overcrowd your wok, because if you add too much to your wok and it doesn't get hot enough, what you do instead of searing everything is steaming everything. There's a lot of stuff in the wok now, but if you saw with the vegetables that I was trying to sear, there wasn't that much in the beginning, and when I've added everything together, I'm just trying to mix everything and incorporate it all into one cohesive dish now. I guess you could say in terms of lo mein, there are two phases to this dish. The first phase is when you sear the meat or the fake meat and the vegetables, and then the second phase is when you add the sauces as well as the noodles. I learned how to make this dish working at a casino restaurant in Macau, which is kind of funny because I never got to taste any of the ones I made, which is kind of like breaking the cardinal rule of not tasting your food. I hope I did a good job. This is a dish that is packed with nostalgia for me, and I really should be cooking it more often. This was great. This is delicious.